The wedding gown was still hanging by the window, untouched. Rose petals lake-rushed on the carpet red against white, and on the 17th floor of an upscale Manila hotel. A young bride's dream had just turned into something unthinkable. She was supposed to wake up to her first morning as a wife. Instead, police found her lifeless still, wearing her silk night dress, the scent of champagne lingering in the air. What happened inside that room? What could turn love, the kind that vows forever, into violence in just a few minutes? And who sent the message that destroyed everything? Tonight, you and I will step into that little room piece by piece and uncover the truth behind the Filipina bride murder, a story of secrets, desperation, and a single text that ended a marriage before it even began. But before we start, I want you to think about this. If you discovered something about the person you just married, something that shattered every image you had of them, what would you do? Because in history, one man answered that question in the worst way possible. Stay with me. What you're about to hear will make you question how well we ever really know the people we love. This isn't just a crime. It's a mystery built on choices, secrets, and a message that changed everything. Let's begin. Before that tragic night, before the flashing lights and police tape, there was just Maria Dela Cruz, a 7-year-old woman from Cebu City with a smile that could make anyone feel seen. She grew up in a small neighborhood where the sound of roosters mixed with morning laughter, and the smell of freshly baked pan diesel drifted through open windows. Her father, Ernesto, drove a tricycle from dawn till dusk. Her mother, Lisa, taught in local public school, the kind of teacher everyone remembered years later because she cared more about her students than her own comfort. They didn't have much, but their house always felt full of music, warmth, and love. Every Sunday, Maria helped her mom cook while her little brother Paulo tried to sneak extra rice from the pot. In the evenings, they'd sit outside their house singing duets on the karaoke machine until the neighbors yelled, "Last song." Nah, she was the kind of daughter who never complained, even when life demanded more than it gave. After finishing her degree in marketing, she found work with a small digital agency. The pay wasn't much, but she loved it. The creativity, the challenge, the satisfaction of making something from nothing. Every month, she sent part of her salary home. For Mama's medicine, she'd say, or for Paulo's school project. It wasn't a duty. It was who she was. Maria believed in love with her whole heart. The kind of love that could heal, that could make the world gentler. She told her friends once, love isn't perfect, it's patient, it waits, even when everything feels impossible. Her life was simple, but her dreams weren't. She wanted stability, laughter, and a future where her family never had to worry again. She didn't know it yet, but the path she'd chosen out of love and loyalty would lead her to the most heartbreaking moment of her life. And at the center of it all was a man who would promise her forever. Maria met Eric Mendoza in the most unexpected way through a dating app during lockdown. She wasn't even looking for love. She was just bored, scrolling between work breaks and family calls. But then she saw his profile. A 30-year-old software engineer from Manila with an easy smile and words that felt sincere. He described himself as goal-driven, family-oriented, and ready to build something real. For Maria, who'd spent years putting everyone else first, that line felt like a promise. Their conversations stretched from midnight until sunrise. They talked about dreams, building a home near the beach, traveling once borders opened, starting a small business together. It all sounded perfect when they fin a limit. In person months later, it felt like destiny was catching up. Their first date, a quiet cafe with rain tapping on glass, both nervous, both laughing at how surreal it felt to see each other outside a screen. From that moment, their worlds began to merge. To people who had known hardship, finally finding comfort in each other's presence. Eric showed what Maria called quiet confidence. He wasn't loud, but he carried himself like someone who knew where he was going. He spoke often about responsibility, ambition, and being the man of the house. At first, it sounded noble, but sometimes there was something heavier in his tone, a need to control, to be the provider, even when it wasn't necessary. He'd joke about how men should take care of the big things, or a wife should focus on home. Nothing. Maria brushed it off. She thought he was old-fashioned, maybe just raised that way. And because she loved him, she chose to see the best in him. She told herself, he's just protective. Maybe that's his way of showing love. But love, real love, doesn't hide a control behind care. And though she didn't know it then, those small moments, those harmless words were the beginnings of something darker. Maria believed love could soften anyone. She didn't realize that sometimes it only hides the edges until it's too late. It was Maria's 28th birthday, a night filled with laughter, candles, and kind of happiness that feels endless. She didn't know Eric had something planned. He'd reserved a small seaside restaurant in Batangas. Just that wow of them, soft lights reflecting off the water. He talked about how she changed his life, how her patience steadied him, how her laughter made her days worth it. Then he stood up, reached into his jacket, and knelt beside her. Maria froze. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. And when he opened the small velvet box, her tears came before the words did. She said yes, without hesitation. They returned to Cebu to celebrate with her family. A night of food, singing, and joy that spilled past midnight. Her mother hugged her tight and whispered, "You finally found someone who will love you like you deserve." Everyone believed this was the start of forever. In the months that followed, the couple planned a wedding in Taguig. Simple, intimate, elegant. Maria wanted soft colors, live music, and her favorite childhood dessert, lechfla. Eric handled the logistics, insisting on paying for most of it, even when she offered help. They were a team, or so it seemed. Every photo from that time told the same story. A woman in love and a man who looked at her like she was the answer to everything. But truth was, Maria had begun to carry a secret. One she believed she could manage. One she swore she'd take to her grave if it meant keeping their happiness intact. Behind every smile, she had a truth she thought love could protect. A truth that one day would cost her everything. A few months before feuding, life took a sharp turn. Eric's company announced a sudden downsizing. A wave of layoffs that left him jobless overnight. At first, he didn't tell Maria. He'd wake up, get dressed, and pretend to go to work. He'd spend hours sitting in a cafe with his laptop open, scrolling through job listings, trying to hold on to the version of himself he believed she needed: successful, stable, in control. Pride can be heavy. It can make silence feel safer than truth. When bills started piling up, the venue deposit, the photographer's advance, the catering, Eric's lies began to crack. Maria noticed the tension in his voice, the late-night sighs, the way he avoided her eyes when money came up. One evening, she finally asked, "What's wrong?" He hesitated, then told her everything. Maria didn't hesitate. She reached for his hand and said, "We'll get through this together." She offered to take over the costs. He refused. At first, his pride wouldn't allow it, but she insisted, "This isn't just your wedding, Eric. It's ours." It should have brought them closer. Instead, it built a quiet wall between them. He began to withdraw, ashamed, restless, haunted by the feeling that he was failing as a man. The asterisk in Maria, always the problem solver, started looking for ways to ease his burden without telling him. That's when she reconnected with Trisha Navarro, an old college friend. Trisha was everything Maria wasn't: glamorous, confident, always posting photos from rooftop parties and beach trips. When they met for coffee, Trisha arrived in designer sunglasses and a gold wristwatch that caught the light with every gesture. She spoke casually about opportunities, about finding ways to earn big online without leaving home. Maria listened, intrigued but cautious. "What do you do exactly?" she asked. Trisha smiled a slow, knowing smile. "Let's just say I get paid to make people's days a little brighter." That conversation would plant a seed, one that would change Maria's life forever. She thought she was saving her wedding. She didn't realize she was lighting the fuse. When Maria met Trisha again, she expected a friendly chat, old stories, shared laughter, maybe advice on saving money. Instead, she walked into a world she didn't recognize. Trisha leaned across the cafe table, her voice low. She spoke about a new kind of work, one that didn't require an office, a boss, or long hours, just a phone, a camera, and the courage to do what most people wouldn't. At first, Maria thought she was joking, but Trisha wasn't smiling. She explained how she'd been macking money through private content, exclusive photos, and videos shared online with paying subscribers. She called it empowering, safe, and temporary. She said, "It's just performance, Maria. Like acting. You control what they see, what they don't. You're not hurting Gagnon. You're just surviving." Maria felt her stomach twist. Every part offer wanted to say no, but then she thought about the unpaid venue deposit, her parents' medical bills, the rent. Eric's silence had become heavier each week. She couldn't bear watching him break under the pressure. That night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind running in circles. By morning, the choice was made. She created an account under a name that didn't belong to her. Maria Salas. Her rules were clear. No face, no names, nothing explicit. Just tasteful, artistic content, short-term. A few months at most. At first, it felt strange, mechanical. But when the first week's payment arrived, $900, she froze. It was more than her entire paycheck. By the second week, it doubled. $2,000. An auto catch up on deposits, pay off bills, and still send money home. She told herself it was harmless, a temporary fix, a secret between her and her reflection. Each time she clicked a dupe load, she whispered, "Just one more week, then I'll stop." But secrets, they never stay buried for long. The morning sun in Tajet painted the sky gold. Thegerton was alive with color white roses, soft lace, the scent of jasmine carried by the breeze. It was the kind of day brides dream of. Maria stood before the mirror in her gown, radiant and calm. Her mother adjusted her veil with trembling hands, whispering prayers under her breath. Her father lingered by the door, trying to hide his tears behind a nervous laugh. Outside, guests were arriving. Friends, family, co-workers. The air buzzed with excitement. Cameras flashed, laughter echoed. And at the altar, Eric waited, sharp suit, polished shoes. The expression of a man who couldn't believe his luck. The ceremony began. Their vows were simple, heartfelt. Maria promised patience. Eric promised forever. When the priest declared them husband and wife, applause filled the garden and confetti rained down like blessings. For a moment, it looked like everything she had ever wanted had finally come true. Among the crowd, Trisha Navarro stood near the front, dressed in champagne as Maria's maid of honor. Her smile was perfect, but her eyes told another story, quiet, distant, calculating. Later, as they toasted Tolov and new beginnings, Maria hugged her and whispered, "I couldn't have done this without you." Trisha's laugh was light, but her gaze lingered too long. There was something sharp behind her slants, something Maria didn't see. As newlyweds waved goodbye and climbed into their car, the guests cheered, cameras flashing one last time. Maria leaned her head on Eric's shoulder, her veil fluttering in the wind as the car disappeared down the road. To everyone watching, it was a love story that ended with a kiss. But what waited beyond that drive would rewrite everything they thought they knew about each other. That drive to the honeymoon suite would better last together. It was almost midnight. In her condo overlooking the city, Trisha Navarro sat alone, a half-finished glass of red wine on the table, the glow of her laptop lighting her face. On the screen, she scrolled through something she'd been watching for weeks, Maria's secret account. Under the name Maria Salas, subscriber numbers, comments, payments, each click told her one thing. Maria's page was exploding. She wasn't just successful. She had already surpassed Trisha's own earnings. That's when envy began to twist into something darker. She leaned back, smirking bitterly. Then, with a slow breath, she opened a new tab. A new mail, no name, no trace, just a burner account. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard. Then she started to type. She attached screenshots, blurred images, usernames, payment logs, proof. An auto-destroy everything Maria had built. Time on. The screen, 11:46 p.m. Checklet send. Now back in the hotel suite. Maria in a white silk nightgown. Soft music playing. A bottle of champagne half empty. She's laughing, brushing her hair in the mirror. Then booze. Eric's phone lights up on the nightstand. He picks it up, opens the message. His smile disappears. His fast tightens. The glow from the screen reflects in his eyes wide, unblinking. His hands start to shake. Maria turns, sees him frozen, staring at his phone. Eric, she asks softly. What's wrong? No answer, just silence. She walks closer, nervous laugh. Babe, you're rescuing me. He finally looks up, and in that moment, she understands. He knows. Her expression shifts from confusion to dread. Then chaos, a scream, the dulcet of something heavy hitting the floor. At 11:46 p.m., a message wasn't. By 12:30, Maria Dela Cruz was dead. At 12:10 a.m., guests on the 15th floor of the hotel began calling reception. They reported shouting, "Akrish," and what one described as a sound you don't forget. Security was sent to check. By the time they reached room 1714, the noise had stopped. The hallway was silent. They knocked. No answer. Knocked again. Still nothing. When the door finally opened, what they saw inside would stay with them forever. The room looked like a storm had passed through. Broken glass glittered across the carpet. Rose petals once scattered for romance were now dark with blood. The lamp beside the bed lay shattered on the floor, and beside it lay Maria Dela Cruz, still pale, her hand reaching toward nothing. Eric Mendoza sat just a few feet away on the floor, back against the wall, staring at his hands. Didn't move when the officers entered. Didn't speak. Didn't even look up. His phone sat near his feet, its screen still glowing in the dark. The message that had started it all was still open. By the time the police pronounced her dead, the clock read 12:26 a.m. From the moment she said, "I do," to the moment her heart stopped beating. Only 6 hours had passed. The marriage lasted just 6 hours. By sunrise, the honeymoon suit had turned into a full-scale crime scene. Investigators moved through the room with measured precision. Cameras flashing, markers on the floor, every detail recorded. Eric Mendoza was taken into custody without resistance. He spoke little, only whispering Maria's name again and again. Detectives began with the obvious, the phone, the message that started it all. The sender's address led to an unregistered prepaid SIM card. No name, no ID. Just a purchase receipt from a convenience store 2 days earlier. But technology leaves traces even when people think it doesn't. Security footage from the store revealed a woman wearing large sunglasses, a hat, and a mask buying the prepaid SIMs and paying in cash. Her posture, her build, even her voice when she thanked the cashier, all too familiar to one of the detectives reviewing the tape. They zoomed in. That time stamp matched perfectly. It was Trisha Navarro. When they brought her in for questioning, she denied everything at first, calm, confident, rehearsed, but the evidence kept stacking. Forensic analysts recovered fragments of deleted browser history on her laptop. How tosed anonymous message. Hide phone a number when texting. When they showed her the screenshots, she'd sent the Samiones pulled from her own device. She broke through tears. She confessed, "I didn't mean for her to die. I just wanted her to hurt." Jealousy, envy, betrayal. The motive was painfully human. She admitted to discovering Maria's secret weeks before the wedding, watching her success grow, feeling replaced. The night of the ceremony, while others celebrated love, Trisha planned revenge. In the end, 2 arrests were made. Eric Mendoza charged with second-degree murder. Trisha Navarro charged as an accessory to the crime. One woman's envy and one man's rage. A chain reaction that ended a life and destroyed 2 others. What began as a script meant to save a wedding became evidence in a murder case. 10 months after the murder, the courtroom filled with faces that once shared laughter at a wedding. Now those same faces stared across a divide. The living on one side, the condemned on the other. Eric Mendoza stood before the court, head lowered, wrists bound. The man who once promised said forever now faced a lifetime of regret. His defense argued one thing: crime of fashion. They said he snapped. That betrayal blinded him, that in one impossible moment, emotion overpowered Drian. But the prosecution's words cut through the silence. They said he made a choice to turn love into violence, a choice that ended a life. Witnesses testified, hotel staff, detectives, Maria's family. When the scene photos appeared on screen, even the jurors looked away. Eric's voice cracked as he faced the court. "I loved her," he said, barely audible. I didn't remember what happened. I just remember the message. The judge paused before reading the verdict. The air in the room felt heavy, unmoving. Guilty of second degree. Murder, the sentence 18 years to life. A week later, Trisha Navarro stood before the same court. She didn't fight the evidence. She didn't deny the message. She pleaded guilty to criminal facilitation and obstruction. Her words trembled. I never wanted her to die. I just wanted her to feel what I felt. Sentence, 7 years in prison. When the judge struck the gavel, Maria's mother collapsed, her cries filling. Therum, her father sat motionless, his hands trembling, and her younger brother, Paulo, whispered a promise through tears. I'll make sure her name means something. I'll make sure she's remembered. Weeks later, he registered a small non-profit in Cebu, the Maria Foundation, to help women in crisis. Women forced into silence by desperation. It was his way of turning pain into purpose. Justice was served, but no one left that courtroom whole. 3 lives destroyed by one secret andoni. Message. Maria's choice born of love and sacrifice. Eric's born of rage and wounded pride. Trisha's born of envy and bitterness. Each decision came from emotion. Each moment a step closer to tragedy. If only they had spoken sooner. If only honesty had replaced fear. Ifenly love had been stronger than shame. Secrets don't just hide the truth. They bury it until it explodes. In the end, Maria's story isn't just about death. It's about how silence can destroy thievery things we try to protect. Her name lives on now through her brother's fountain. Through every woman who finds the courage to speak up before it's too late. If this story touched you, subscribe and share it not for views, but for awareness. Because of jealousy, silence, and secrets can kill. And sometimes the deadliest messages are the ones we send in anger. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay kind, and remember, every choice leaves a